Yeah, like I've had a guy come through, like, I kid you not, and he came in, had an alcohol problem, smoking, was on two medications, one for depression, one for pain, just through our 8-week training, lost 3 dress sizes, got off one of his medications, stopped using his sleep apnea machine. Yeah,
That's
like,
fucking powerful stuff.
yeah, I know. I'm like, why did I not start the podcast with this?
Sounds like a magic pill, but
It is a magic pill. And it works even if you don't believe it will work. That's what's really cool.
Hey coach, Xenia Wood here, and this is the Swift Coaches Academy podcast, created for service-based business owners who are ambitious enough to break free from the forever hustle and create scalable businesses that truly make an impact while also giving us freedom. With more than a decade of experience, we're not here to waste your time on theory. Instead, just sharing what works and what doesn't to help you get clear as fuck on your next move and show you exactly how to implement the systems and strategies that you need to scale with confidence. Today we have an incredible guest, long-term friend of mine and breathwork facilitator, Schurmann. How are you? Wonderful.
Hello, I'm amazing. Thank you so much for asking. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. I went to the gym this morning, went for a little coffee, talking about some new business ideas. But let's dive into who the heck you are and why we're here today. Because I think little bit of a different podcast episode to what I normally do, in the sense that, like, we've never had a breathwork facilitator on before. And I think that, it's definitely risen in popularity over the years, but I feel like you're an OG of this and you've been doing this for ages. But the lens that I love that you bring in is not just the woo-woo, which we were talking about before, but it's also like very grounded in neuroscience and the benefits of that. And so I was hoping today that we could dive into like your past and your history, and then talk about like how people can potentially integrate small but powerful breathwork techniques, or if they want to learn more, to get great results with people on their health and or fitness journey.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Yes, love that.
So let's rewind for a second. How did you get into breathwork? I don't even think I know that story. We've known each other for a while, but I don't even think I know like the origin story. So let's go there and then like zoom forward to today.
Okay, amazing. Just for reference as well, is this on video as well?
Yes.
Okay, cool, cool. I'll use my hands then. Um, yeah, so how I came to this journey initially, look, before I even go into that, I might speak into some of the really profound benefits that I've had through breathwork, just to create a little bit of buy-in for your audience. Because I know that you said coming from, uh, it's not really coming from a woo-woo background. So let's just start with, before I started doing breathwork and meditation, had insomnia, had social anxiety, had never run 10K in my life. And last year I did my first half marathon,
Did you say all nasal breathing?
all nasal breathing.
Get the fuck out. I can't even do like 100 meters without.
Saying, I'm like, this works. Yeah. And yeah, completely changed my sleeping patterns. Now I can fall asleep in 10 minutes, so no more insomnia. Again, obviously you can tell it's like I'm the most confident I've been in my entire life. Do anything I put my mind to, and physically, my fitness, my stamina, my endurance, I'm the fittest I've ever been. So I'm just really, really excited to share the whole journey of how I got there. And I think we'll start like way, way, way back, like you said, with how I actually got called to this work. You know, I've landed in a place where, like you said, I'm very grounded in neuroscience, but I definitely didn't start there. Actually, when I was called to breathwork, I was not what you would call spiritual at all. I thought that people who didn't wear shoes were weird. I didn't do any meditation or breath work or anything like that. But I just knew that something in my life had to change. I had this really weird undercurrent, and I don't know whether you guys have felt that before, but it's like you just know something's missing or something's wrong.
Mm.
Mm. And I did the traditional kind of like therapy things, like saw a psychologist, and it helped, but it was just temporary. I was like, oh, I feel great now. Now I've like, emotionally vomited all over this person. Now I'm good for another week until the next week. And it wasn't until my best friend at the time came back from something called Vipassana. You know what that is, hey?
Is that the 10-day silent retreat?
Yes.
Fuck yeah. I feel like I've leveled up on my like knowledge of yes.
Yes, you know things in the spiritual space. Yeah, so it's this 10-day silent retreat where you don't eat after 12, you won't talk, there's no eye contact, no sexual contact, no writing, no training, no reading, not even any yoga. You just meditate for 10 hours a day. And it's the most still and disciplined practice that I've ever done. And it was also the best thing that I ever did. Because in that retreat, that was when, up until that point, I hadn't really experienced any of the benefits of the inner work, let's say. I was feeling so anxious, didn't know if I wanted to be with my partner. Oh no, that's not true. No, I loved my partner at the time. Um, but I just knew something was missing. And it wasn't until like day 6 or day 8 of this retreat that I was sitting behind this woman and she had dreads and all the beautiful sarongs that you get in Bali, like wrapped around her and shit. And I'm sitting behind her and we're both meditating. And you're not allowed to ask the teacher anything until the end of the day at 9 o'clock. And you can ask them something for 5 minutes. And she's sitting in front of me and she goes, "Oh, I've just been like feeling so sick. And I feel like I can't stop crying. I don't understand what's happening. And why is this happening?" And I'm sitting behind her and I'm still meditating. And I'm thinking, what a fucking hippie. That bullshit. That will never happen to me. My back is getting so strong from sitting here for 10 hours a day. If that's all I get out of this, like, I'll be really happy. Anyway, I go back to my room later that night and I start thinking to myself, hmm, I wonder if, and it literally gets to that part of the sentence. I wonder if, and all of this stuff, to this day, I can't explain what this feeling was, just stuff. It starts to come from my peripheral and then it goes, and I'm just landed in my body, like for the first time in my entire life. And I just start crying. And it's like, I don't understand why. I start laughing. I'm laughing so loud. And I'm sobbing uncontrollably. And I'm re experiencing my 12-year-old self and all the most bitter trauma that I experienced as a little girl that I wasn't able to feel because I hadn't been in my body, I'd been in my head for so long.
Mm.
And when I tell this story, sometimes people are like, "Oh, that's so, like, it must have been awful." But I'm like, no, it was the happiest. I was so happy because I was like, holy shit, this is actually how people feel. Like, this is how good life gets to be. This is what bliss feels like. And I just cried and cried and cried and ended up leaving that retreat on top of the moon. And then thought, you know what? No, I need to share this with as many people as possible because what the fuck? And so I went to America and I studied like all these different somatic modalities like breathwork, sound healing, Reiki, sat through over 600 hours worth of classes in different meditation studios, went to India, went to Joshua Tree, studied spiritual emergency and breathwork. And my goal was to find the modality that would work upon someone the fastest and the easiest. And on top of that, be a modality that someone doesn't even have to believe in for it to have a physiological or psychological impact.
Mm. So what did you land on?
So that's what brought me to that breathwork class where there was a dude in a football jacket yelling at everyone, "It's not called breathwork because it's called," no, he's like, "It's called breathwork because it's work. It's not called lounge work." And I remember like breathing in this class and being like, what the fuck? But also, within 15 minutes, having like the same level of profound breakthrough that I had in that meditation center within 15 minutes. And I didn't believe it was going to work. I hated it. I thought, why am I doing this? But I trusted my intuition. And because of that, I was like, this is the modality. Like, this works regardless of whether people understand how it works. And I can go into all the science of that for you guys, by the way. And it works even if you don't believe it will work. That's what's really cool.
I love it. Did you say before spiritual emergency?
Yes, spiritual emergency,
Can you
yeah.
explain what that is?
my God, yay! No one's ever asked me this question before. Okay, so spiritual emergency is the breakdown of everything you thought you knew about yourself and the annihilation of your ego. And when it happens, people can feel really lost, confused, get insomnia, have nightmares, feel like they're getting PTSD. They, for a period of time, just have no idea who they are and what their purpose is. When this is happening, they often get diagnosed with things like chronic depression, BPD, so bipolar, schizophrenia, or psychosis. And when someone's in spiritual emergency, all that's happening is that what you thought about the world, all the beliefs that you believed, the identities you held that were true about you, all of that is disappearing and you're no longer associated with it. So you lose orientation with who you are and where you are in the world. And the issue, and then when it becomes a, let's say, chronic illness instead of just a spiritual emergency experience that you're moving through, that's taking you into the next level of your expression and your identity. When it's stopped and it's made wrong, it's like, oh, you shouldn't be crying, you shouldn't be feeling this, you shouldn't, you should want to stay with the partner that's not a fit for you anymore. You should want to be in the relationship. You should want to work at that career where you've built it to 7 figures, but you still unhappy, but you should be happy. Like when all of that is being suppressed and pushed down, you're not able to feel it, you get stuck. And that's why people get medicated and then often they just get stuck in that experience for a really, really long time. And the truth is, if you continue to regulate your nervous system through it and you make none of it wrong, often you just come out. Obviously, there's acute conditions where medication is necessary, but majority of the time, I would say you can regulate yourself through that. And then on the other side is an equal and opposite expansion to the contraction that you went through that spiritual emergency.
Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Why don't we now dive into, I think like most people hopefully have done some sort of breathwork meditation. I mean, we all breathe, but like if I was, let's say, m- a health practitioner, but I have a degree in something totally unrelated. I've never done breathwork before. What is something, let's say, when someone is maybe in pain and yeah, let's go with pain. Like someone's like experiencing pain. Is there anything that you could do to provide as like a breathwork exercise that could help them to reduce those sensations and help them to maybe get a better outcome or be able to go and do exercise with less pain after that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. At its most basic form, I'm just going to drill it all the way back. When you're using your breath, you're training your autonomic nervous system. So your pain sensitivity is increased by the level of stress that's in your body, right? That's stuck in your stress response. There was a researcher called Mark Krasno from Stanford, and he located a cluster of neurons in the brain in mice, which is very similar in humans, which actually spies on the pattern of respiration in your body. When the body or these neurons determine what that pattern of respiration is, they will report back to something called the locus coeruleus and flood the entire body with projections around how you should actually feel.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, it's cool. So, what he found was that the breathing pattern actually can determine not only your emotional state, but the level of sensitivity that you're in.
Yeah.
And so, when it comes to reducing pain in your clients when you're working with them in fitness, it's about a couple of things dropping them into their parasympathetic nervous system first and then releasing any underlying stress. Do you think your clients know what I mean by the parasympathetic nervous system?
I think a lot of them would, yeah, but maybe like just touch on it in case they're not sure.
Yeah, cool. Because all of you will have heard of the fight or flight and rest and digest nervous system. So within the autonomic nervous system, there's two strands. One is fight or flight, which means if there's a bear or a tiger, you like can either run away or you can run towards it and punch it in the nose. And the other one is parasympathetic nervous system or rest and digest. And this is when all of your major systems in yourself that are essential for your survival go online. So a lot of people are in this fight or flight response a lot of the time, which means that blood's pumping to, let's say, your muscles and your externals, but it's not actually allowing you to get a deep rest to heal, and it hasn't optimized the basic functions in your body. Whereas if you're in rest and digest, your body is naturally in a healing state. So if you want to activate that, it's really simple. When you inhale, you're actually activating your sympathetic nervous system or your fight and flight. And when you exhale, you're accessing your parasympathetic nervous system or rest and digest.
Is that why, if I can maybe beat you to the punchline, is that why a lot of breath work is slower, longer, like longer exhales than inhales?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
A plus, A grade student. Yay me.
She's the riveted up in the world, knows what Vipassana is. She knows the exhale is better than the inhale. Yeah, exactly. So lengthening their exhale, so even just doubling it. So it could be if the normal inhale is 4, then making it 8. Or if the normal inhale is 2, then exhaling for 4 is a way that you can just drop them back into their parasympathetic nervous system, allow their body to release any stress that they're carrying. And then once they come into that training session, it can be really beneficial because they're not carrying not only the physical stress in their body, but they're also not carrying that psychological stress too.
And so on a really like tactical level, let's say that you were going to get some clients who were experiencing pain or just stress in their lives, which is, like seemingly more and more people these days. Would you suggest doing that for 1 minute or 6 rounds, or like what would be the prescription to just get a little bit of relief
Yeah,
or a better session?
I would actually say that ongoingly, you would do it maybe 4 times 5 minutes a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it just whenever during the day? Is there benefits to doing it before bed or as soon as you wake up? Like if you were to get more, like have people like just have enough protein, but if you're going to be more specific after a workout, like what's the breathwork version of that if there is one?
Perfect. Okay, yeah, so 4 times 5 minutes when you wake up, midday before your workout, and then at the end of the day before you go to sleep.
Yeah. And is that just so it's because it's consistent, it's like tied into another activity so it'll like get done? Or is there any benefit to like spacing it out intentionally?
The benefit to spacing it out intentionally is that our society is set up to have you always going, going, going. And so even if you regulate your stress, let's say once a day, there's going to be all these other external stresses that are still pushing your buttons. And so the more you can regulate your nervous system, then the more you're returning your body to its optimum state of functioning throughout the day. So there's something called the vagus nerve, which is like these 2 nerves that run through. It's like a meandering network that runs through your entire body, and it runs through your heart, runs through your diaphragm, your and basically every major system. And when you're in a state of anxiety or stress, it's kind of like half-mast. And so the more you can actually just keep releasing that stress at different periods of the day, the more you're going to come back to being in that healing state more often, which is going to reduce pain overall and allow your body to release inflammation and yeah,
Which is why they call it the work or like training.
training your nervous system. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that they can do as well, which is again like floating over to the woo side, but is so beneficial, is the breathwork journeys. Now, these are like you'd want to do maybe one of these once a week. But the reason I say it is because it kind of has the opposite effect to the breath work I was just talking about. That's great for beginners and for people who maybe aren't ready to go super deep. But if you got someone who's just like, who's an adrenaline junkie, who loves like leading the edge and getting comfortable in outside their comfort zone, there's something called tumno breathing, which has been trademarked by Wim Hof, been trademarked by Stan Grof, and been trademarked by myself and lots of other breathwork companies. But essentially, it's ancient Tibetan meditation technique, which is designed to create heat in the body. And the way it works is it actually overactivates your sympathetic nervous system because it forces you to breathe in and out through your mouth with no pause at the bottom and no pause at the top. So that is actually increasing the stress on your body, but it's increasing it so much that it pushes your stress lever all the way up so that it can go all the way down.
And that's like intentional hyperventilation? Is that what we're doing
Yeah.
with those things?
I would say controlled hyperventilation.
Okay.
Yeah, and in that, when you're in that state of extreme stress, what happens is there's a huge adrenaline dump, cortisol, and then what's cortisol? Well, it reduces inflammation.
So cortisol being the stress hormone, can you just dive into a little bit more how that reduces inflammation?
Mm. So the reason that we produce cortisol is to protect our organs, right? And the way it does that, ah,
It's so fine. I'm asking like really technical questions. So fun. I don't remember like the specific science, but I guess my understanding of cortisol is it's like the stress hormone, the stress response, and it's primarily seen as negative. But you're saying that it can be beneficial. So can you just maybe explain how that happens?
yeah, look, I'd have to go and consult all of my notes. But what I do know is that when it produces that adrenaline dump, it produces cortisol, which, yeah, has been associated as a negative hormone, but it actually just protects your heart and your major organs and tissues from deterioration. But I can't remember the exact reason why. So what I can do is just go look at all my research and then and bring it back to you maybe.
Come back. We might chuck it in the show notes or something. Yeah. This is not a science test.
Good, it's good.
So that's cool. That's cool. Okay. So, and then how would I go about doing this controlled hyperventilation? Are there like specific videos online? Do you find people get more profound benefits from going to like an in-person class with a group of people? Like, how would you best want to do that if you are that go person, the adrenaline junkie who knows that they probably need a bit more of a slap in the face rather than like the slow graded exposure approach.
I mean, there's so many different options. You could definitely come and do one of my online sessions, or I've got online sessions that are free on Spotify anyway. So I can definitely drop that in the show notes as well. Outside of that, yeah, you'd go to an in-person class. Being around a group of other people who are moving through that can be really powerful in terms of energy. But I would just say start with one per week or one per month. And obviously check the contraindications too. So if you've got history of seizure or epilepsy or anything like that, just make sure that you go and speak to the facilitator and find out the way to customize it so that it's still really safe for you to do that. But yeah, that was how I woke up actually in one of those sessions where um that, like I said, that guy in the football jacket was yelling at me and I was like, okay, let's go. And yeah, and it changed my life and continues to do so. So highly recommend.
That's so cool. And so, I mean, we probably should have said this at the start, but you've done a ton in this space. Like, I remember, I guess, like, we worked together for a bit. Remember when I did was it Pilates and puppies or which is so much fun when you had your old business that was like you had goats and you go on like Channel 9 or something and you were like touring around and that was a crazy time. But like I guess for anyone listening, like Burr is not just like a random breathwork facilitator, but we probably should have said this before. You're the one who is coaching and training people to become breathwork facilitators. So you coach the coaches. And not all of them, I mean, a lot of them probably have some other sort of like, would you say like health or wellness qualification or something, and they want to tack breath work onto that? Is that what the majority of people who work with you, or at least a portion, come to you through that?
Yeah, great question. I would say that most people come to work with me because they want to amplify their impact and they want to do it with more ease and effort.
So to the point. So I love it. Like,
Yeah, yeah. But so often, yeah, they will come to add it to their toolkit because they're just looking for a deeper way to support their clients and heal their community at scale rather than doing it, let's say, one on one.
yeah, cool. And so how how do people go about like getting into this? Like, I mean, you sort of obviously said that you just knew something needed to change. Are there any other common symptoms, or perhaps from a coach perspective, symptoms they could spot in their clients that would, I mean, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but my understanding is that everyone can benefit from breath work, but maybe the people who are um, ready to go there, or what am I trying to say? People who are like going to benefit more from breath work because they're maybe in like a heightened state right now. Um, how do how do you decipher those people in your classes, in your community?
Amazing. Yeah, so there's two different ways. One is physical and one is psychological. I'll start with the physical one. So if you've got someone who finishes a workout and they're like this, and they're like, and they take, let's say, more than 3 breaths to recover, you already know that that person is over breathing during training. And that's actually reducing the duration and the intensity that they can train at. Someone who has optimum breathing should be able to regulate their breath within 2 deep breaths after they've finished exercising. If not, then they're probably not actually absorbing the oxygen that's in their bloodstream into their muscles and tissues as efficiently as they could be. And I'll go into what that. Mm?
Yeah, I was just gonna say on that, would that depend on the intensity of the training though? Because I'm thinking like a 100-meter sprinter, like you're probably not gonna regulate your breathing in that moment because you don't need oxygen to your muscles because they're already there. But like, is there a certain level, like if are you saying like if you're doing long distance running or if you're doing just a regular steady state cardio, like what is there a limit to where you'd be like, okay, like your regular normal training sessions, you should be able to breathe like this. But if you hit above 80% of your heart rate max or whatever, like, is there a switch or are you sort of blanket statementing this?
Great question. Yeah, I'd say, hmm,
Probably not like, just not like high intensity, like super flat out work.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, not if it's a workout where you're deliberately trying to kill yourself, then yeah, you're probably you're probably gonna be gasping for breath at the end. But if it's a workout that is, I'm not a fitness coach myself, so I don't know how to frame this properly, but maybe you can help. But if it's like something that is still, I'd say like 80% of what their maximum intensity could be, and they're still finishing like that, then what they really have is exercise-induced asthma, and they're not actually getting the level of endurance and stamina that they could be getting if they change the way that they breathe in everyday life.
Okay. Yeah. From an exercise perspective, I'd probably say that marker is probably closer to 70 or 75%. But without knowing anything about exercise, you're pretty close. But yeah, I would say it's sort of when you're working in that aerobic capacity rather than tapping into the anaerobic where you're doing like sprints or like hit training where, like you said, you are trying to like kill yourself.
Yeah, that's it, 100%. Yeah.
Cool.
Um, yeah, so there's heaps we can talk about there, but I might move into the psychological unless you've got another question.
No, go for it.
Yeah. So the other psychological impacts where breathwork could really help is when you see someone who can't be consistent or can't be disciplined and they don't understand why.
Mm. And so how does breath work improve consistency?
Yeah, great. Okay. Because usually a lack of consistency and discipline comes from someone who's maybe procrastinating or overthinking or getting in their own way. And often they'll come to you and they're so frustrated they can't stick to the plan. They're like, what's wrong with me? Right. And there are two ways they can go with this. One, if you're not actually optimizing the oxygen delivery in your bloodstream, or you're in a state of fight or flight most of the time, so high stress, high anxiety, then the carotid arteries at the back of your brain are actually being constricted. You don't have enough carbon dioxide retention in your blood, then oxygen's not being released. And since CO2 is a vasodilator, your blood vessels are like, and what happens with your blood vessels at the back of your brain are like, is you can't actually think clearly. And often that puts you into an even more activated stress response, which then creates something called asynchronous thought, which is when you think a million things all at once and you can't actually discern what's important and what you should focus on.
I'm like pinpointing people in my life. I'm like, these people need it.
Yeah, and so when you've got asynchronous thought, you can't prioritize, you know?
All right.
And it's really difficult to remember anything too.
And so would you say that that kind of uh, crosses over with people who have ADHD? Because they often like,
Yeah.
yeah, so they would be like gold star standard for like definitely do some breath work.
Yes. My everyone still tells me they think I have ADHD. Like my brother and my best friend, the one that sent me to Vipassana, she actually bought me books and then delivered them to my house on support for women with ADHD. But I was never diagnosed, but she diagnosed me.
Yeah, but you've just dealt really well with it through the breath work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
and managed it.
demonstrated stuff
Yeah.
and learned how to manage it. Yeah.
Look, I definitely think that there is that hyperactivity in you for sure for anyone who's met you or gets the chance to, because there are a million things going on in your mind at once.
Yes. Uh, yeah, no, there's the other level as well, obviously. So there's just doing that breath work we spoke about earlier, like slowing down the exhalation. Something that I forgot to speak into was also rotating from the belly to the chest. If you see someone who's always breathing through their chest in everyday life, then they're putting themselves in a stress response. So you want to really focus your attention on imagining there's a little seashell on their belly button and they're just breathing that out. And like if that seashell's floating on the waves, it's just coming up and down with each breath. So the what was I saying? Going back to the other aspect of the psychological impact of breath work and the reasons when you would work with someone. Right. Yeah. If they're feeling unmotivated, if they're stuck, if they're self-defeating, if they shame themselves, all of that could be related to past traumas or their upbringing or something that's unresolved emotionally. And so this is where we go a little bit woo. But when it comes to the breath work, what you really, oh no, it's not woo. Okay, here we go. So when you go, when it comes to breath work, the sessions that I was talking about where you really activate your stress response, you are breathing so fast and deep and rapid that you are offloading so much carbon dioxide that it depletes your body of oxygen. Because if you imagine your bloodstream as like a tunnel and these oxygen carriers as shipping containers and they're going through the bloodstream, and on the shipping container, there's an oxygen molecule and there's a CO2 molecule. Now, if the CO2 is there, the oxygen's like, yay, thanks, CO2, and it goes to the tissues or the brain. But if there's no CO2, the oxygen just sticks to the hemoglobin and it just keeps going round and round your circulatory system without actually being deposited into your muscle or your brain. Okay? So if you have reduced your CO2 so much, certain parts of your brain and body actually get inhibited and can't receive oxygen. This is loosely based uh, on science, but it's you've got to take it with a grain of salt. So when you think about the evolution of the brain, you're thinking about the lizard brain, right? The lizard brain is survival, hunger, sleep, sex, all those primal drivers. The next part of the evolution of the brain was the mammalian brain, limbic system, hippocampus, long-term memory storage, feelings. This is why elephants can go and visit grave sites of their ancestors and they still know who was there. They can still feel it, right? There's emotions. Or your dog or your cat gets sad when you leave, right? They feel it. And then that last part of the brain, the part that animals are missing, is the thinker, the analyzer, the judger. You know, the dog's not judging the other dog, like, dude, you need to shave, like your hair's too long. Right? The dog is just happy and present and feeling all its emotions, but not thinking about its emotions. And so the prefrontal cortex and neocortex is that human layer of the brain, and it was the last to evolve, and therefore it is the first to be affected by chemical change. So when you reduce that CO2 and you deprive your brain of oxygen, that's the part that starts to shut down.
And so that's how the hyperventilation breath work can help to get you out of overthinking and into action or movement.
Yes. And ultimately can help you feel whatever weird block it is that you have from your past or your childhood that is preventing you from moving forward in the thing that you truly desire or deeply, deeply want. It's like maybe that person wants a fit body. Maybe they want to win that competition. Maybe they want to achieve success on stage as a bodybuilder, right? But there's something that's blocking them. Usually it's not a lack of action. It's a lack of self-belief. And that's usually born from something that happened in childhood where they were made wrong. And then they formed that they couldn't figure out what they'd done wrong. So they formed a mental strategy to just cope. And then that becomes the thing that blocks them from moving through it to take the action that they know they need to, that's in alignment with who they want to be and what they want to do in the world.
So how does breath work improve my belief in myself? I understand that it's going to stop me from overthinking and it might move me into action, but I think uh, for me, I'm like, the self-belief is such like a deep like belief that one holds about themselves, hence self-belief. But like how does breath work almost like dismantle that?
Hmm. I love your questions. If this doesn't clarify it, please keep asking. So I'm gonna draw on a story. I think that will help. Just trying to think of something where someone or myself was blocked from taking action, and then we did breathwork and moved it.
I think I could see how that could help in the moment, but I guess what I'm sort of hinting at is like, how does that support long term, or is it just the consistency with the breath work that continues to provide the action that then forms the belief? Or is it like you can have a profound moment from a breathwork session and then you can almost like flip a switch?
Ah, number 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have a profound moment from a breathwork session and realize all the reasons why you have been sabotaging yourself. And then once you know why, you can't use them as excuses anymore. And so you're able to move past it and believe something new and choose something new.
Mm.
But the issue is that often the level of thinking that has created the problem that's blocking you is how you're trying to move through that problem itself. And of course, that's never going to work. And
I had
so,
something the other day that feels very aligned with this in terms of like, if your problem was created in the brain, you can't solve it by being in the brain. I.e., if your problem is overthinking, you can't think your way out of that problem. You have to like physically move your way out of that problem. But if your problem is you saw something, you can't see your way out of that problem. You have to think your way out of it, or like you have to use a different modality to shift your perspective on it. Is that, would you say that's correct?
yes, it's called a pattern break, the thing that you're describing.
Right.
And there's a structure in the brain called the thalamus, which acts as a switching station between your thinking and your feeling. We all think that we can think and feel at the same time, but we actually can't. It's just happening so fast that you don't notice. And an example of that for people who don't really understand this is, when you see, say, a really masculine person arguing with a really feminine person, the masculine person is like, well, what's the problem? Tell me the problem and I'll give you the solution. And the feminine person is like, no, 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 but I just need to feel this. I just need to be heard. I just need to be seen in it. And in her head, she's thinking, that's the answer. But the masculine person is like, well, no, that's not the answer. There's still a problem. Let's just take these steps and then it will be solved. And the issue is that, yeah, if you are thinking, you actually can't feel. And if you're feeling, you can't actually think. So exactly as you said, breaking that pattern that you're in takes you out of the problem so you can see it from the outside and choose it from a different way of being, or choose to take action from a different way of being.
And so, have you found circumstances where someone's maybe had some trauma in their life or whatever in the past, and either they've tried talk therapy or psychology or whatever to try and get out of it and it hasn't helped and breath work has? Or do you still feel like that even if you do the breath work, people may need to speak through the problem as well? Like, for example, if someone had some really traumatic thing happen in their past, can the breath work be the thing that helps them move forward? And do they need to then still potentially talk about it? Or can that be the thing that um, helps them move through and they don't need to kind of like go back and rehash the story?
It's very contextual, so I would say that both are possible and both have happened.
Okay.
Mm. It really depends on the person itself and how much work they've done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So, what are the maybe like the go-tos, or like what do you use on like a daily, weekly basis for different circumstances? Like if you're stressed versus if you're trying to like um center yourself before like performing on stage, or like do you have different things that you use through the breath for that?
Yes. Thank you for framing me. I love this. Okay. Perfect. So, my daily, weekly routine, this is what it looks like. In the morning, I'll do a breath of fire. That's on my Spotify playlist as well for 5 minutes, and it increases focus. So if you're starting your day at work and you're like, oh my God, there's so many things to do. I don't even know, like they're all urgent, they're all important. Like what's going to actually be the thing that moves the needle forward the fastest? Right. That's when you would center through Kapalabhati or breath of fire. And it creates focus, clears your head, and then allows you to act from intuition. So that's what I start the morning with. Then I'll do anapana or insight meditation. And this is noticing the natural normal breath without changing it. It's also really boring. Um, but it's probably the most powerful practice of all because you learn to be with the pattern of your breath. And no matter what sensation you feel, you just be with it. When you can be with reality as it is, nothing can rock you from your center.
And so is that like, if you're feeling sad, allow yourself to feel sad? If you're feeling angry, allow yourself to feel angry? Or is it just more like, I've sort of heard it like a cloud, like it's a passing thought and you let that pass?
Perfect. It's the passing cloud. It's what we call equanimity. And equanimity is the ability to be with reality as it is without needing to force it to change. So it's to be in pure flow.
It
And
feels like have you heard the Mel Robbins the let them theory?
I've been reading that book. It's so good.
Yeah, it feels like that. Like you're just allowing what is to be.
Yes. And then it resolves itself.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'll do about 5 minutes of that. And then I'll actually always ask myself a question at the end of it. So once I've stilled my mind, then I'll ask myself, hey, what would make today amazing? And then I notice the mind creating all these like things that it wants. And then I go underneath that. I'm like, yeah, but what's the feeling that you want to feel? What's the amazing feeling? And I feel that. And then usually out of that feeling, maybe one or two things comes out. And that's my intuition saying, hey, these are the most important things to do today. And they're going to create you getting to the end of the day and feeling absolutely amazing. And so I'm like, okay, that's it. That's the priority.
I love that. It's like allowing the breath work to clear the mind and then setting a really clear intention. But we had a mindset coach on recently who was talking about like all the things that you're avoiding doing or whatever is because you're avoiding an emotion. So obviously that you're just talking to the opposite of that. What do you want? What is the emotion that you want behind the surface level thing that you say you want?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And then after that, I'll do my workout. And when I do my workout, I actually do something called hypoxic training, which we haven't spoken about yet, which is when you're training your VO2 max. Your VO2 max is the amount of oxygen that you can turn into energy per minute. And so what that looks like is during my run. So I do endurance running. During my run, I'll wait until my body's warm and then I'll do 10 breath holds. And
While you're running?
yes.
Oh my gosh. And so, okay, hang on. I need to conceptualize this. How do you do 10 breath holds while you're running? You hold for X number of time and then you allow yourself to breathe normally, or is it breathe in, hold, breathe out, 10 in a row?
It's normal breath in, normal breath out, and then hold on the normal breath out for as many paces as you can. And then when you think you can't hold anymore, you resume normal breathing and you just breathe really light through your nose for about 15 seconds. And then you initiate the next hold and you do 10 of those. But it's important for everybody listening to not copy that exact method because that's based on me knowing my control pause. Your control pause is the amount of time that you can naturally and easily hold your breath. And when you measure that, you should be able to restore your natural breathing pace within 2 deep breaths. So the reason I'm doing those breath holds is because when I hold my breath for, let's say, now I can do 25 paces. So 25 paces of breath holding. However many paces you can hold for is determined by not resilience and willpower of like, okay, I can hold my breath for this long. It's actually how long feels uncomfortable to hold, but will still allow you to restore your breath pattern within 2 deep breaths of that breath hold. So for example, if you go for a run now and you do your practice doing a breath hold and you can only hold your breath for 8 paces. That's perfect. As long as you can restore your breath into deep breaths. If you can't, you've held your breath too long and it's counterproductive. It's actually not helping. So that's the other thing that I do.
And so what's the benefit of the hypoxic training?
Yeah, so it's increasing the tolerance to CO2 in your body. So remember how I was talking about the shipping containers and the oxygen and the CO2? So the higher level of CO2 you can hold, the more you can distribute oxygen and turn that into energy in your body.
And does that help just during the workout, or are there benefits post-workout and in the rest of your day?
All the time.
And so
Benefits.
like in terms of helps you manage stress and things like that as well? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, and in terms of to get really finicky with it, like before the human race was around, the CO2 levels were actually really high, but now we've built all this civilization and CO2 in the atmosphere has dropped, which means that the internal CO2 levels of tolerance in our body has dropped. And our CO2 level inside of us is supposed to be higher. It's just that we uh but we now have to create that because the external atmosphere doesn't contain that level of CO2 that we require. And the way that you do that is by training yourself to breathe less, which is what I'm talking about in these breath holds. And when you can train your nervous system to breathe less, you're actually going to breathe slower. So people think that your need to breathe is determined by the level of oxygen that you have. It's not true. Usually you have about 96 to 99% oxygen in your bloodstream at any one time. So your desire to take your next breath is actually determined by the amount of CO2 that you have building up in your nervous system. If you have a lot of CO2, then it will stimulate your respiratory response and you will take a deep breath. And a lot of people are breathing a lot more than they need to, and it's dropping their CO2 level, which means that you may have oxygen in your body, but you're not actually using it. So when it comes to hypoxic training, yeah, it'll increase your energy, it'll increase your ability to sleep better, it'll increase your ability to focus on your work, come from that intuitive place. Has benefits.
Reduce pain, improves performance.
Yeah, increase endurance, increase stamina.
Sounds like a magic pill, Beth.
It is a magic pill.
You're like, this is what I've been trying to tell people.
Pretty much.
You're like, it does exist. And it's free.
Fuck's sake. I heard this trick.
I can understand now why the guy in the football jersey was yelling at everybody.
It's like, it's just all our internal frustration coming through. But yeah, like I've had a guy come through, like, I kid you not, and his name is Bradley, and he came in, had an alcohol problem, smoking, was on 2 medications, one for depression, one for pain, and just through our 8-week training, lost 3 dress sizes, got off one of his medications, stopped using his sleep apnea machine. Yeah,
That's
like,
fucking powerful stuff.
yeah, I know. I'm like, why did I not start the podcast with this?
But we'll I'll get Julia, my podcast editor, to make that the like clip for the trailer.
Yeah.
She's listening, so she's like, okay.
Yeah. Oh, and obviously stop drinking alcohol and smoking as well. Like it's just, and what he says now is he's like, but he messages me. He's like, "Bro, I've got abs. It's like I'm 21 again. I'm 37, but I'm 21." Like,
Oh,
yeah,
that's fucking cool.
yeah, it is.
Wow. So, we could be here all day, I'm sure, but in the essence of time, yeah, exactly. Staring at the clock, being like, holy fuck. Where can people go to learn more about what you do? We will link the breathwork trainings from your Spotify account in the show notes for anyone who's like, fuck yeah, I want to do the fire breathwork or the insight meditation. So that'll be there for you guys to jump to now, spend 5 minutes doing it. But yeah, where can people find more about what you do, learn about it, contact you?
Yeah. So, contact me on Instagram. I'm the Breathwork, or on Facebook, Berenice Schurmann. Although I think I don't have space to add any more people, so probably Instagram is better. But yeah, if you just contact me there and actually just start telling me all your problems, I will probably send you a free breathwork journey that is an exact match for that, which will change your life.
Amazing. I love that you have so many free resources and things for people. And I love that there's personalization in that as to like what people are going through and what's going to work best for them. So thank you for providing a fuck ton of value to people in the world and like literally changing lives, because that's not something to scoff at. And I will probably see you very soon. Bye, beautiful.
Thank you. Bye.
Hey, coach, before you go, the reason I do this every single week and the reason we've been able to surpass 100 episodes is because of you. So thank you. We're on a mission towards never seeing another coach leave the industry because they didn't have the skills or the confidence to scale. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that before you forget. I read every single one of the comments and share as many as I can. So if you found this episode valuable, sharing it with a friend who might be able to benefit from hearing it would honestly mean so much to me. Until next time, and in whatever you do, move swiftly.